Hello and welcome to another episode of the CAGED Canary podcast. I'm your host, Maddie, and this is my friend, Kemin. Kemin, say hello, introduce yourself.
Hello, introduce yourself.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Kemin. Who are you? What do you do? Why are we here?
Those are the questions I ponder about every day of my life. Who am I? What do I do? And why are we here? So basically, upon who I am, my name, the label that I put on my business card is Kemin Zhang. So that's my name, and that's what's on my passport. But I'm going with Dr. K these days. I think I want to be more scholarly. I want to present myself as a researcher, a historian of sorts.
Right
so
on.
I'm going with Dr. K. So I'm here as Dr. K. So
Dr. K.
Yeah, Dr. K.
Well, I'm going to call you Kevin because that's what I know you as.
Okay, fine.
We're going to save the Dr. K for another episode. But the reason why I want to invite Kemin on is he's a magician from here, Toronto, and I met him a few years ago. And since then, we've traveled literally to the ends of the earth together to work on magic and different projects. And he's a big believer in turning what you have in your mind, in your imagination, into reality. And he's been able to do it over and over again. And I find that very fascinating because we live in a world where most people just have ideas in their minds and dreams, but they're unable to fulfill them. They're unable to make them real. And when you're unable to make something that you dream of real, it almost becomes like a nightmare curse because you just have that unfulfilled potential. So, I mean, why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because I know it's something you're passionate about, making things come true.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for this wonderful introduction. And secondly, this making things come true. Let's work backwards from what is already reality. So there's a cup, I'm holding this cup, but I know this cup didn't always exist. It was one day thought of by somebody who then maybe made a sketch and maybe eventually make it into reality. So there was a process which begins with the person's idea or his imagination. So everything around us, the spoon did not always exist. This lamp, everything. We live in a reality that we have constructed from bits and pieces of different people's ideas. And because those people have worked on it and spent time and put resources together to make those ideas into reality, we are now kind of enjoying this leftover reality from these ideas. But most people, I think, fail to realize they actually have the potential of also creating the reality for the future, things that do not yet exist. So I think I'm a firm believer in that, and through studying magic and learning about magic and learning about storytelling and learning about history and how we came into being, like our civilization, how it evolved into this, it's really interesting to observe how magic or the deep meanings about magic and its secrets is so real, and it's so important for us to reconnect with and to open up that part of our being that is not just a consumer of reality, but a weaver of the dream of reality and making that dream come true.
Well, you said something really interesting. I'm going to let you unfold that, but you said something really interesting, and that's we're living in a world that people have created. We're living with the fragments of their creation. And it's really interesting because I think you're either living in a world that you're creating or you're living in a world that somebody else is creating. And I think part of giving up the control of your life is choosing not to live in the world of your own creation anymore and just to allow the environment and the circumstances completely shape your reality, where what I think we're talking about is really us taking control of that reality and imposing our own ideas on reality to change and shape reality. We bend reality to our will. And we have been able to do that. I want to talk about let's talk about sort of how not really how we met, because that's not really part of it, but how we brought ideas together and made them real. So you had an idea which was quite different than my idea. I had an idea, a dream that I talked to you, but before we had that conversation, you had a dream. What was that dream?
I have many dreams, Maddie.
What was that dream that eventually we flourished into an ocean of dreams?
Okay, it was actually 3 dreams. 3 very similar dreams. 3 dreams about the same place. I almost thought they were the same dreams, but I realized they were actually different. All the dreams happened on a ship in an ocean. I was practicing lucid dreaming during that time, and I was listening to this audio that kind of gave me this simulation of the ocean. And so every time I would listen to this hypnosis induction into this lucid dream, my first dream would be to be floating on this ocean, and then eventually the dream happens and I get lost in the dream. And so because of this ocean premise, these 3 dreams of my initial how should I say, my initial experiences with this craft of lucid dreaming, or like inventing your own dream, is through this. You can edit this later, right? Because I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is sort of just uncut. Just let it free flow, because we're just trying to explain the process, and like everything that we create is a process. So what will eventually unfold is this huge show that we did, that culminated in a huge show in China. But this is sort of like the process of how that came to be.
Okay, so the first dream was that I was on this ship, and I was learning about it, and there was a captain that I met, and he was navigating this ocean of endless dreams, and there's dreams being dreamt in the ocean, like there's like things that lit up, and then there are some people that you can actually save, like if their dream was like too chaotic, too turbulent, or too weird, and they get lost in it, and they capture, or not capture, they rescue them from this ocean and then bring them onto the ship. And in the ship, they have these rooms where they can let them play out their dreams or nightmares and deal with their situations in the confines or in the safety of on this ship. So that kind of was this idea, and then so that became the idea for the show. But in the dream itself, I just met with this captain who led me to a room. So in this dream, he led me to this dark kind of room in the middle of the ship. He says, this is a room where reality and dream meet. And it was kind of murky. I couldn't really make out anything. I could see a fish tank. There was a rectangular fish tank, which I thought was kind of strange. I was on a ship, which is on the ocean. There's a lot of water, but there's also a contained fish tank with water, with fish in it, like but the fish are kind of just captured in this. And I thought it was kind of an interesting image. And then I woke from that dream. That was the first time. I woke up from the dream. I was like, wow, that's so vivid. And during that week, I got a call from one of my mentors, Tony Stimac. He's like a director, a musical director. And he said, oh, I have a meeting. Can you come with me to meet this guy at a music studio? And so I went with him to this meeting. And then upon entering the studio, there was exactly the same fish tank that I saw in this dream. So I made this connection that, oh, wait a minute, maybe I dreamt of something that I can find its copy in reality now. Okay, so that's the first opening, like this onion's first layer.
Okay, so let me just pause you there. Let me explain to people a little bit about this. So you are also from the music world. You're into composing, you've been playing music your entire life, so you know people in the musical world. You've been developing these skills. You've been preparing for these different opportunities, which eventually culminated into this big show. And you have all these skills already inside of you, and you're ready to work on something big. And you have a dream, really weird dream. It could have been any dream. The same week that you have that weird dream, you get a phone call from a musical director, and when you're talking with him and he's showing you some stuff, you see something literally from your dream, and then from there you're able to make a connection. Oh my gosh, this is how I can make my dream maybe into reality. Is that sort of what I'm getting?
Yeah, actually, you are actually getting a more of a connection from the musical. But this director wasn't directly related to this project, though. But
the connection made it real.
Yeah, it grounded in reality. There's this world in reality where this dream can be talked about. And then the second time I had the same dream, I went back into this room, not this room, on this ship, and the captain took me to another room, which is really bright this time, and there's all these it's almost like an Apple store with a lot of windows, really bright, and there were lines of tables, wooden tables, and on each there were almost like boxes of Lego displays, but they were plants. Okay, there were plants that they were, cultivating on this ship, and the plants had perfect rectangular and square leaves, but they still had these veins. It's really weird to see this organic but perfect leaf. And then there were squares. This green. It's almost like mint. And the captain says, if you eat this leaf, you grow your power to make dreams into reality.
Sort of like an Alice in Wonderland moment.
Yeah, but it's in the dream, right? But I didn't eat the leaf. I took the leaf. I actually hid it. In my dream, I had a cigar box, or a cigar tube that was empty. And I folded some of these leaves in my cigar tube. And then before I capped it, there were also these little bugs. They're perfect, little Lego bugs that would eat the leaf. Okay, I actually, in the dream, I remember noticing a couple of these bugs crawled into my cigar tube, and I kept this, and then I woke up, and then, of course I forgot about the cigar. There's no cigar tube in reality, obviously, but now there is, because I had that dream, so now I carry this with me. Do I have it? So now I carry this with me everywhere, because this is very similar, not exactly, but very similar to the one I had in my dream, and this is from 7-8 years ago. So now it's become my habit.
That was an important dream for you. And there was a dream that I told you about. I remember you came to New York. I was living in New York at the time. And Kemin had come. He was doing some musical stuff, and we met up. And honestly, not too long before that, I had a really vivid dream. And inside the dream, I was playing the piano, and I was wearing, a top hat and tails, and it was quite surreal, because as I was playing the piano, there was an audience there, and there were cards sort of levitating out of the piano, maybe dancing on the strings, and I made a drawing of that, or a painting. I don't remember if I showed you.
You did. You sent it to me.
And it was just this dream I had. And why did I have that dream? I don't know. There was something unfulfilled in me. When I was a kid, we had a music class, and all the kids had to choose their instruments, and they all chose their instruments. When the teacher came to me, I told her I wanted to play the piano, and she told me that, she was trying to protect me. She wasn't trying to be malicious or anything, but she said, Maddie, you have a great mind, but you have a body that doesn't work like everybody else's. You should focus on stuff that you can do with your mind instead of your body. And I was like, okay, but that feeling of wanting to play the piano never left me. I really do think the piano is a beautiful instrument, and it was something that I had never pursued up until that point. So it was like there was something unfulfilled in me from having that rejection of wanting to do it again, and do it for real. And I don't know, it came up as a dream. It just kept coming up, and I told you about it, and it was just a conversation, just like many conversations you have with people. And
that was a special conversation. I went to visit you we had cigar in the park or something. I remember it was like
I had a cigar.
There was a flat iron building was in front of us.
Yeah.
And we just sat there, and then you told me about this dream. It was really vivid, and I saw it in my as you told me the story. I could kind of resonate in your brainwave, whatever. So I kind of saw you describe it, and so that made a real impression on me.
So, and it's amazing. So what started off as dreams eventually turned into a massive show in China in which these dreams took place, literally these exact dreams that we just have described to you, but for real, in front of an audience of 10 to 15,000 people, huge audience in Shanghai, and we are going to talk about how that happened right after this break. Thank you for listening to the CAGED Canary podcast. If you want to support these podcasts, become a member at MattyTheMagician.com. Becoming a member of the Magi gives you a lot of access to all the podcasts that we make, as well as extended interviews and a bunch of features. Kevin is also pointing towards my deck of cards. This is my deck of cards. It also helps me every single time you buy a deck of cards. These are great cards. Do yourself a favor, pick up a pack. Kevin, you've used these cards before. What do you think of them?
I think they're very nice.
No, what's your honest review?
They have no index.
They have no index.
They have no index. It's very special. I mean, my honest review is not necessarily a better functioning deck, but it's a piece of art because it has 2 queens of diamonds.
Well, this is usually they don't have 2 queens of diamonds. I don't know. This must be
3.
This must be a manufacturer defect. I don't know. Usually they come out with 1 queen of diamonds.
But you drew all these, right?
I did.
It's amazing. Like, look, each one is a piece of art. In fact, I could totally see them blown up, as lithographs or something.
They were when I was on Chinese TV.
They were. That's true. That's right. Jiangsu Weishi.
So, pick yourself up a pack. They're only $15 on my website. Buy a bunch. You'll use them. They're smooth finish, crushed thin. You'll really get a kick out of them. They're quite unique. There's nothing like them. And especially if you want to have like an old-fashioned type show, this is the only deck on the market that I know of that has these types of faces. So, do yourself a favor. Pick up a pack. Or go to MattyTheMagician.com and become a member today. Thank you so much. And back to our interview. Kevin, tell us how Ocean of Dreams started. What is Ocean of Dreams?
Ocean of Dreams is a show, was a show. It's not running anymore, but it was a show in China, in Shanghai, that was about a ship that sailed on an ocean of dreams of endless possibilities, on which this ship had many rooms. In each different room there was a magician displaying his own dream. It's kind of a magic musical spectacular multimedia show, and it was inspired actually partially by Matty's real dream that he described to me in New York when I went to visit him. And we had a cigar in a park next to the Flatiron building, and he said that he had a dream about
playing the piano. But before we get to that, because people don't know what Ocean of Dreams is. Unfortunately, the magic world is not really aware of how significant this show was. This was the largest magic show in China?
In Asia.
In Asia.
For now, until the record is broken.
The largest magic show in Asia. It was huge. It was done at the Mercedes-Benz Center, the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai. How many people were there that night?
10,000 audience.
10,000. I think more than 10,000.
Well, I think there were some scalpers who had some access to like cheap tickets. I don't know.
There were a lot of people.
It was out of control.
And it was amazing. Honestly, before we get into it, I just want to tell you a little bit about my experience. We didn't really have time to rehearse to to do the show inside the arena. There were some technical complications that always happen during
Rent
shows.
is too expensive, actually.
There's the rent, we have
a budget thing.
We couldn't pay the bills. It's expensive. No, but realistically, there were just some issues the day of, and I remember doing the show for that many people. It was wild. Going in the middle of the arena, it's basically like this. It's a sports arena, and we were in the middle, surrounded by all sides, and it was really special because when you're on stage there, my experience was, and even though it was dark, I could literally look around and look into the eyes of every single person, which was surreal because like there's a sea of people, there's an ocean of people. And I'm looking around, and it's like you just have this connection with everybody, and like the energy was amazing. And you know, like I've never been to like a mega concert, like one of the Queen concerts or Michael Jackson, or I've never been to a massive concert like that. But I can only imagine the energy, because the energy that we had that night, you could feel it through your whole body with all the emotions in the show, from the singing to everything. Like for me, it was really, just really powerful. But yeah, let's talk about how the show started. So you had this idea for a show. It started off with dreams, which we're going to get to in a bit. But let's talk about like just the logistics of putting this show together. So you have an idea for a show, or somebody needs a show, and you get brought on as a producer, creative director, I believe.
I think my title was artistic director.
Artistic director.
Whatever, it's just
co-creator, creator, whatever.
Part of the job was to provide the script, because I got the call from Joe Deng. Joe, he's very well connected in China, in the magic world.
Joe Deng is an amazing magician. I consider him to be, and I don't want to insult anybody, but the best sleight of hand magician in China, in my opinion. He's amazing. He's amazing, really nice guy, really smart, knowledgeable of magic. Amazing guy. So that's Joe.
Yeah, he's probably the highest level magic consultant for Chinese TV and everything. Anyway, so I get a call from Joe, and he says, "Hey, we need a musical, we need a show, and the date is set October 9th, I think. Rent is paid. Stadium shows, it has to be big. Do you have a script?" And
is that a common thing to do that backwards? Rent a theater and decide to do a show before a show is even created?
No, that's not a common thing at all. Actually, I found out later that they actually had another show that they planned to do, but for whatever reason, the guy that was supposed to provide the content ran away with the money or something.
You're saying they got Shanghaied.
They got Shanghai. So the producer.
So hold on, you guys need to learn what the term Shanghai mean. This is a word that I learned first person experience in Shanghai. But tell them what the word Shanghai or Shanghaied means.
I think it cannot be described. You have to experience it to understand what it is to be Shanghaied. But anyway, so by the time I got into the project, we had half the time left, I think maybe a few months, and then half the budget left. And but we have to put the show on, and it has to be the biggest in Asia. And so we had to figure out, okay, so the stadium is big, but it was like we have some big dreams, and at one point, I mean, it's really unfortunate that this thing didn't get produced because they didn't want to sign a waiver for the cameras to be damaged. But there was a series of mirrors at different, at specific angles set throughout the stadium, where two lasers would go and make this laser frame of the ship. But they didn't sign off on it because of insurance issues. So there's so many things that didn't really actually get realized, but these ideas were there.
Let me explain what he's talking about. So this was a show called Ocean of Dreams. Basically, the premise of the show was that there's a crew of people flying around an ocean of dreams, and they're trying to make dreams come true. And they sort of get lost, they get shipwrecked, and I don't know if they lose the dreams. I forget the exact premise, but.
Right, that was part 2. That was part 2 with the shipwreck.
Anyways, the idea was we were flying around making dreams come true, and this was like the high level concept. Eventually, we were going to flesh it out with more of a story and turn it into potentially a TV series or different, different mediums, to flesh out the story. But the idea was there's a crew of people on this magic ship making dreams come true, and this was realized with a crew of magicians doing different magic acts, and I was one of the acts on the show, and Kemin was, creator of the show and music guy, making a ton of music. And
actually, the music was produced by Joel Fortenberry III.
Who's amazing.
It's amazing.
Even the music was so good. I wish I could put in this video.
And rap by Jay Zan, original rap. Who's
also amazing.
Definitely, let's link that track to this.
I will. You guys, so click down below. You're gonna listen to this track by Jay Zan. I still have it on my playlist. I mean, it's amazing. It's like, and you have to understand. So Kemin was working on designing the show. He invited me on the show, and I didn't really know too much about. I knew sort of the bare bones of the show, like what was happening, but I wasn't aware of everything. And when I got there, they literally had this crew of dancers who were working with choreographers, and it was amazing. And it was so amazing to be part of a show that was a musical but had magic, and it's something that's very uncommon.
It wasn't really a musical. There were some tap numbers, but it wasn't really a musicalized. It didn't tell the story.
Well, it was a musical for me. It was the most musical thing that I ever did, because I actually played music in the show. That was my dream, and my dream was to play music in the show, and Kemin made it literally come true. And it was amazing. It was really like, I had told him about this dream, he made it happen, and I got to make my dream come true. That was some of the dreams that led to the show, and we've talked a little bit about the creation of the show. I just want to talk about my experience when I got there. So Kemin told me, you're going to play piano in the show. And I was like, okay. And he's like, hey, don't worry, we can fake it really well. We're just going to, you're going to do the movements. It's going to be timed to the music. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I want to play the piano for real. So I got into Shanghai. I got flown in. It was amazing. Kemin, I don't know if you picked me up from the airport or I met you at the hotel. I'm not too sure. But that first day, we went to the Shanghai Conservatory. I do remember that. We went to the Shanghai Conservatory, and you had a room there with a piano. I had never touched, I've never sat down and played the piano before in my life, and you said you've recomposed the song, meaning you've rearranged it to move some of the notes around to make it possible for me to play what I need to play.
I should say, it's Irving Berlin's music. I did not recompose anything. I just made it easier to be played in your circumstances.
Okay, I don't know the technical details, but he worked some magic on the keyboard.
You did the magic.
And we sat down there, and you're like, okay, this is the song. You're going to press this key, this key, this key. And I swear to you, that first night, realistically, I really doubted myself. I said, okay, we're going to have to fake it. We're not going to be able to do this for real. We're going to have to fake it. And
then the string quartet came.
There was a string quartet. But my experience was, I'm not going to be able to do this. I only have a few days. to learn how to do this and to practice, I'm not going to be able to do it. But I had like, I don't know, there was like a little fire burning inside. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can do this. And I don't know if you remember, maybe the next day or like 2 days later, we went to a recording studio because we needed to record a track. And by then I was practicing like enough, and we played a recording of me doing that track, and then I'm like, you know what? I think I can do this for the show. And you're like, are you sure? I'm like, let me try. And I just practiced playing the piano over and over again until I could do my part perfectly. I wouldn't say perfectly to musical standards because, you know, I don't have experience with music, but it was good for what we were doing.
If I may add,
yeah,
you practiced until there was blood. Literally, there was blood on the keys. This guy was bleeding on the keys. That's how hard he was practicing.
I did bleed. I practiced so hard that I had blisters on my arms, which made it quite painful. But I don't know, it's sort of music. I'm not a music person, but it's sort of meditative. You just start and the time goes by. So I didn't realize like I've been doing this for so long. Because you just sort of get into these little action loops and you're getting so rewarded. It's almost like sleight of hand. It's better than sleight of hand. Sleight of hand doesn't create music. You're getting a reward with each key that you play because it sounds good when you hit the keys to, you know, to the timing and everything. It's really amazing. So I sort of got lost in that to the point of practicing, where it was getting pretty good, and it was amazing. But let's tell them a little bit about sort of now that we've covered that, let's get more into the technical details of the show, because there was a bunch of musicians and dancers and magicians, and you know.
Well, let's start with the director, Don France, whom I just finished working with on the physics show, which is still touring in China. Actually, I'm still getting checks from it. So he's very experienced in he produced the Lion King and like Beauty and the Beast, like all the Disney Broadway shows. He's like the general manager for, and so he was in China, and we just worked on a different project. And I said he always wanted to do a magic show. He got into the theater business by working for Mark Wilson. And then he came with Mark Wilson.
Yeah, that's right.
He came with Mark Wilson to China on an 80s China tour. So he knows China. And he got into show business because of this China tour. And he was actually originally the albino gorilla, apparently, in the cage. That was his role in the Mark Wilson show. So and then now he's like a famed Broadway producer working in China, and he happened to love magic and has magical experience. And so I invited him to be our director for the show, and he did a great job. He pieced all together all the different magic acts from 9 different countries.
We had magicians from China. We had magicians from
Canada,
France, Russia.
Yeah.
Argentina, Spain, maybe.
France, Spain. Was it Spain?
There were a lot of magicians. There were a lot of great acts.
Magus. Where are they from?
Netherlands.
Netherlands. Yeah.
What is it? Magia Utopia?
Magus Utopia or something.
Magus Utopia. Wow. In my opinion, the best act.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're
like from
so
a
solid.
magical standpoint, wow. Okay, so they do really great illusions. Like I have sort of an aversion to illusions because like illusions traditionally cost a lot of money and they're not really that great. Like they look cheap, they don't really work that well. They're sort of not good. But Magus Utopia, their props, like I was watching the rehearsals from backstage, from like all angles. I'm like,
yeah.
Even though, like, okay, the first few times I saw it, I'm like, I have no idea how this is happening. Even when I'm watching it from really bad angles, I'm like,
It's
okay, I sort of
clean.
know how this is
It's
happening, but
clean.
it's so good.
It's
It's
so
so well designed that I'm like, it's like you're close up to the illusion and it's fooling your eyes. It's like when you see really good sleight of hand.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, this is legit. They were legit.
That was the best. I mean, I think it was also our opportunity for Chinese audience to experience magic on that level. You know, like I wish they would go to China and share their arts more often. I mean, also there's an element of storytelling within their act.
It's amazing.
You know, it's amazing.
Honestly, to me, like it was amazing. It was my first time seeing them live, and it's so good. Like, as somebody who's been in magic for a long time, I don't really get impressed easily. You know, you see a lot of stuff that's interesting, but they were like, wow.
No, I mean all the acts were great, right? Like
They were all great, but they were the best.
yeah, they were like something else. Let's not offend anyone, man. Like,
No, they were all but everybody was amazing.
except for this guy who wanted to play the piano. And
I was okay. I
think you flashed on your card thing,
I did.
right?
That was pretty. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, this guy was a little oil and water.
I was so focused. So this is sort of a technical detail. So in real life with magic, sometimes you screw up, but you have outs and stuff. I was speaking in Chinese. I was speaking in English, but they had subtitles in Chinese. I didn't have a translator, and so the subtitles were like pre-written, and they just like were put up as subtitles as I was talking. It was sort of like, you know, this graphic that was put on. So I had the situation where I kind of screwed something up, and in actuality, I would have just, you know, continued, and I would have just handed out the cards and said, oh, you know, mix them, whatever. I would have just improvised, right? Because it's like, whatever.
Yeah,
if something gets screwed up with sleight of hand, you go a different direction. But because everything was sort of like scripted, I couldn't change the script in that moment. So even though I had screwed something up, I sort of had to like power my way through it. And
It was great. It was a great recovery. Nobody noticed. I don't think anybody noticed except for maybe the Asher.
I think the magicians noticed. I think the magicians noticed, but
No,
I heard very good comments, amazing comments after the show. But really,
it was great. It was the most emotional.
Here's the thing: the
moment.
magic that I did was meaningless, and it was a big wake-up call to me, because what people really resonated with was the story. Because after I performed the magic, I told them a little story, and I said, you know, all my dreams I've been able to accomplish through magic, all my dreams except for one. You see, when I was a kid, I wanted to learn how to play the piano, and I had a teacher who told me that I could never play it. All of my dreams I've been able to make real through magic, every single dream except for one. And tonight we're going to make that dream come true. And Kemin was on the piano. He was playing Moonlight Sonata, beautiful song by Beethoven.
It's the only Beethoven piece I can still play nowadays.
And as he's playing it, I'm telling the story, he stops. I come to the piano, he starts playing it, and I'm playing sort of the higher notes, which for me is like amazing, because those are like the notes that get elevated above the other ones. So
The melody.
I start taking over the song with those higher notes, and it's just like a triumphant feeling. Like, it's just like, it's this amazing magical feeling. The music was magic in that moment. And I mean, even me doing this as a show, I felt it was magic. The audience, I know, felt it too. And
Music is real magic, man.
And it was amazing. And then I went off and I played another song, Putting on the Ritz, which was the song in my dream. But yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. The show was amazing. I believe it was very well received. The music in the show was amazing. But let's get away from the show for a bit and go back to the general premise of this whole conversation, which is turning dreams into reality. Because we've done it, we want to continue doing it. I think there's no point of living unless you're doing that, because we all have so much of inside of us that we want to bring out. So let's talk about how to do that and how to do it practically after this short break. If you are enjoying this conversation and you want to hear more conversations like it, please subscribe to this podcast called the CAGED Canary Podcast. I'm your host, Manny the Magician. I bring on guests from all over the world to talk about magic and things to do with wonder. And, you know, we're sort of just changing and we're trying to just bring different things to magic. We're trying to expand magic away from the table and away from cards and magic tricks into real magic, which is what we're trying to talk about today. Kemin is a magical person to me. He's the guy who gets magic in a way that I don't often find, which is why I like talking to him all the time. So
I'm so honored, man.
So thank you for being here, and enjoy the rest of our conversation. Okay, Kemin, what I want to talk to you right now, which I think is the most important part of the conversation, is how do we turn these things which are starting off as dreams into reality? Because I find most people just get caught up in the dreaming phase, which can become quite toxic, and I want to hear your perspective about it, because you worked on different projects and you sort of have that experience to know the difference in between a dream and the reality of making a dream. And, you know, let's just talk about that, because that is, you know, that's interesting.
Well, there's a joke in musical theater where they say they frequently asked, what comes first, the music, the lyrics, or the script? And the answer is the money. So they have to have money first. So this is the same as doing any
okay, so let's talk about this, because this is something that I've found often with you, just in our private conversations. I don't think I'm giving anything away, but you often talk about different projects, or we talk about different projects, and you're like, let's see how we can get money to, you know, fund this. And so you're very much grounded in reality, whereas I have a different take. Like, I'm sort of just a guy who's sort of gung-ho. I'm like, I don't really care how this project is going to be done. I'm going to do it, whatever. If nobody believes in it, if nobody sponsors it, I'm going to figure out how to do it by myself. Even though it turns out to not be the greatest thing, I'm going to do it because I want to do it. Whereas you take a different approach, which is, how can we do this properly?
Well, as properly as you can. I mean, if you're doing everything yourself, you're spread too thin, and you can't focus on the part that you really bring value to.
But I find there's beauty in those limitations. Like, the limitations force you to be more creative. It forces you to be more ruthless in the project, because you can't do everything the way you want. You don't have an unlimited budget. You don't have what you would have in an ideal situation. That forces you to do things differently. And obviously, you know, there's negatives to that, I think. But I think also what happens inside of you is, like, the passion gets, like, super activated, because you're like, I'm on my own, I gotta figure this out. But you feel differently.
Well, at least if you figure it out, you have to figure out where you're selling tickets to. Even if you don't get money.
MattyTheMagician.com. Buy your tickets today.
Right? So you have to convince up a whole bunch of people to want to buy your tickets. Like, you kind of have to figure out where your market is and all that stuff. But I mean, I'm just trying to do it on that's a safe way to do it, right? Because you want to not die from, bankruptcy.
Of course. No. So for you, the money is very important because it allows you. What does the money bring you? The money brings you access to people who can help you in the areas that you're weak in, correct?
Or just get professionals to do professional jobs.
So let's use Ocean Dreams for example. We had a lot of dancers. You're not a dance guy. There were choreographers brought in.
Right.
You could not do that on your own. I wouldn't be able to do
No.
that. So
And then
obviously
nothing-
that costs money, correct?
Right. Or magic consulting. Lee Asher was a great value to the team. He could see. He understands magic, and from from the production level, he could communicate with the director what's needed, and so there's so many pieces like cogs and wheels in the show, or the translators. In fact, we wanted to have everybody bilingual on the team because we had a director from America who didn't speak Chinese, or he spoke good taxi cab Chinese, but not enough to communicate.
No, clearly, for a big project like that especially, you need money. Just because there's so many expenses, there's people coming in from all over the world. There's just a lot of money involved.
Or if you have a smaller project idea, you could, if you had a one-man show, maybe it doesn't cost that much. You don't have to.
There's always costs, though.
Right, that's true. But you still have to know what the cost is.
But that doesn't mean that you need a backer. Like, there's a lot of people who invest in themselves. So, okay, let me ask you this. At what point do you decide this is a project which I'm not going to personally invest in, but I'm going to seek outside investors?
I think upon seeing that the project has legs, because you want to make sure that people who are invested in it are investing in it for it to be a success, right? So even the money that gets put in, it should be put in for a reason, not just to blow cash on something.
No, of course. Okay, without getting into specifics, do you think that it's important that the investors believe in the project, or are they just motivated by making money? Because this is very important. I'm a very big pragmatist, and I believe that if you are going to find investors for something, you shouldn't rely on them being in love with you and being in love with your ideas. Everything is a symbiotic relationship, and I feel like people want something out of their investment. So I look at it like, if I am working on something that I need investors, how can I make this as appealing as possible to somebody with money? How are they going to benefit from this? How is it going to add to their life? What are they going to gain? That's the way I look at it. Do you look at it, or do you care, or do you let them figure that out? Because I'm looking at what motivates them, and I'm trying to fulfill their needs and desires. Do you think about that, or you're just thinking of the project?
You definitely have to think about what you are providing for your investors, or what you are. I mean, there are investors and there are patrons or sponsors. Like, there are different types of people who are giving you money to do something. Sponsors don't need to see a return on their money. They are spending this money to be in endorsement. They want to be associated with your event. They want to make a speech before the concert. That kind of a sponsor is not looking to invest for a return, ROI. But there are people who would invest in a show because it's a project that it's more interesting. Maybe not better than putting your money in Tesla, but it's more interesting. You get to be invited for opening night parties and red carpet events, and there's a lot of partying or meeting the artists that goes around that part of being a producer or being an investor.
Yeah, it's complicated. I always find it, so for me, there's certain projects that I work on because they just pop up, they're available, there's money to be made, there's experience to be made doing it, and so I'm passionate about my art, so I'm excited to work. I'm just excited to work on anything. But at the same time, there's other projects that I'm personally passionate about that I don't care if anybody believes in it. I'm just like, I'm going to do it either way. Do you feel that, or?
Yeah, well, everything I do it either way, but sometimes it's easier when money comes.
It's always easier with
right?
money.
So I'm not gonna say no when all of a sudden there's there's a guy who he has a big budget and he wants to produce your script. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Like, I'm not gonna say no. He doesn't really get me.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So We're talking sort of about a like a model that's sort of traditional production model. There's somebody who comes in who sees a potential in this product, um, and they invest in it. The world, though, especially with the internet, is shifting towards people having more access to producing things themselves. People are able to produce them, like they're able to produce shows, podcasts. Like this is, fully self-produced. Like there's literally nothing going on here. I have a camera on a tripod with a microphone, and I'm recording backup audio on my cell phone in case this stops working for whatever reason. And we have no studio. We're in a pub. I've ordered a beer, he's ordered a tea, and we don't have any rentals costs. My cost, I mean, we paid the parking and we paid for the drinks, and it's like, it's the cheapest. The quality is affected by that, obviously. We could have much better quality if you became a member and actually decided to support this. But I'm going to do it either way because it's like I love to have these conversations, and regardless of the circumstance, I'm going to be having these conversations and making them available. But yeah, when is that sort of, my question is, when does that shift happen in between you deciding something that's is going to be more of a personal project, which I think these days you can make money out of and you can monetize, rather than being a professional product?
I think most professional products, the idea is not yours. Somebody needs something. When we're doing a fashion show, we need 5 minutes of 105 BPM. Like that's like their need, and then you just kind of fill in the blank. And it takes you 3 days to do that, and you get paid. But a personal project would be like, oh my God, I'm compelled to write a song about this issue right now. I have to use a song to, then that might take 2 weeks, or longer maybe, and nobody pays you. Right? So yeah, you can still do that, but you do that after you get paid from the gig.
But the rewards I find are quite different. Like I feel like you get rewarded for doing the work either way. I'll give you an example. This is a project that was inspired by you. So I had been doing guided meditations for some time, just privately experimenting with it. And I sort of wanted to get more into it. I did an experience for you in your car.
Yeah, it was amazing. That was the first time I was hypnotized, actually.
So I hypnotized Kevin in his car, walked him through this guided visualization. He had an amazing experience. He said he was working on a product, and can I create these these guided meditations? So it took me a long time to write and do everything, and I originally we were going to do it with music and stuff, but I said let me just I just took music online.
Yeah.
That I also was good, but anyways, at a certain point, I had been working on this project for a long time. At a certain point, I'm just Kevin was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make this music." I'm like, "Dude, you don't understand. I've been doing this for weeks. I want to be done. I'm done. I'm done." And so, I sort of just got the project done, and it was incredibly weird for me because when I put it out, people are used to me doing magic, so people were really thrown off. Like, what is this? Not many people got it. Not many people were interested. To be quite honest, not everything you do is going to be super popular. But the people who did the meditations were really impressed, and they said, "Wow, this is really powerful. I love this." I got really hyped up from the positive feedback, even though it was very small. And for me, I'm like, "Oh, there's so much benefit in this. I want to see what else I can do with this." So I find whenever you do work on projects, regardless of the incentive that you get from a producer or financial, even if something doesn't work out you know, even if something's not a commercial success, like a traditional success, it usually leads to something amazing. And that's what I always found. Like, there's some stuff that I've done that's been extremely commercially successful that I'm not really, you know, I don't really care about. There's other things that, you know, I've done that have been commercial failures, but they've been amazing, or they've led to amazing things.
My favorite projects were all commercial failures. It's almost like a curse. Like, the best work you do doesn't sell well, and the things that are like 70% are still touring. Like, you know, like it's weird.
So I just want to say something. Like, no matter what you're doing, you can work really hard and invest a lot of money into a project, or have really, you know, somebody can invest a lot of money into a project, and it can be a complete failure. And something else that you do that you don't really care about, you just sort of like pump it out in 30 minutes and just put it whatever online, can become super popular. So we sort of live in this weird world where it's like the effort, you need to constantly be putting out the effort even though you don't constantly get the reward.
Okay, I think the reward for yourself, the effort you put in, satisfies yourself that you are making.
You get the
this.
reward from the work.
Yeah, that's actually the
because the
real,
work is what you should be doing.
No, it's just what you love to do, right? Like you rather do nothing else but make this a little better right now. This is what I want to spend my existence doing.
Yeah, and I found, like, I'm just saying from my own personal experience, you can create quite a toxic relationship with the work if you're always just looking at the outcome. If you're always just looking at, like, oh, how much money did I make from this? How much, if you're always just looking at different metrics of success rather than finding the love in the work, you become really disturbed by life. You know, like, this is chaotic. Creation is chaotic. And you just gotta roll with whatever comes. You know, you can't let yourself be broken or even become like, as much as I want to say enjoy the success, you don't want to be on a roller coaster every day of your life. So maybe it's better just to do the work and not even care about the outcome. Not even look at it. You know, imagine if you composed 1,000 songs and you put them online and you had no idea if they were successful or not. Like, you had no idea. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Well, if you don't get the emails telling them your status, you know, online, they have your analytics.
Well, how often does it happen in life that there's an artist who creates a huge body of work and they're never successful during their lifetime, and then they die and whatever. A few years later, their work gets discovered and is hugely successful.
That's a great idea. Okay, that's a good murder mystery. So the artist dies, right? And everything he ever created appreciates in value. And he dies in the house during a party, and all the people that are closest to him, they all have a motive because they all own a lot of his art. Okay, so that, and then it's a whodunit.
It's a whodunit.
There you go. That's another idea. If we had the time, we could probably like write this play and then produce it. But you know.
So, well, often in our conversations, we have a lot of ideas. A lot of ideas always pop up. And for me personally, I'm just saying from my own experience, I have so many ideas that I don't, like, I love them all. I want to do them all. But realistically, it almost becomes a distraction. Because it's like, I can't do this, I can't do this. Like, I do a lot of work on many things, but I'm unable to finish anything.
It's not a distraction, dude.
So,
I mean, you have it there so that when the opportunities does come, you have it ready.
Yeah, but I think it can also become toxic in a way. I've been taking a habit now of limiting the projects I take on.
That's a good idea.
And just focusing on finishing, like the little booklets that I gave you. So I made these little booklets, which I saw after my show, and for me it was just like I want to get this done. Like, I could keep working on this. I could keep expanding it, or, turn it into a real book, do a lot of stuff. But it's like at a certain point, I just want to get this done, move on to the next thing. I felt that same way about the guided meditations. I feel the same way about, I'm doing a show next week, which is sort of a new show. And like at a certain point, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, I want to just do this, get it over with, and work on the next version of it when I'm back home. I don't want to. I know myself. I'm gonna continue working on it until the last minute. But that's that's all. That's also life.
Yeah, but when is it done? When is it ever done?
I think it's
Like,
one of the
you
amazing.
keep painting
So
it.
even in Netflix and like the movie business, there's stuff that's released, and then they have the director's cut, and they'll continue to. Even in Netflix shows, there's shows that have been on Netflix that they just change. People are like, hey, what the hell? They cut the scene out. And it's like, yeah, the director said, hey, I don't want the scene anymore. I just cut it out. So I think, we live in a digital age where it's easy to change things. And, there's a great story of Piet Mondrian. The artist.